Let's ask Congressman Steve King, Republican of Iowa and a member of the House Tea Party caucus. Good to see a representative. Well, Liz used a football analogy. I want to use a baseball analogy that Paul Ryan used. He said, look, we're only going to hit a single or a double, not a grand slam. But shouldn't you go into every game, go into every negotiation, hoping to hit it out of the park?
Well, either hit it out of the park or be able to play your ground game to the point where you win, yes. And
but you guys are not doing that, according to Paul Ryan.
Well, there's been some of this language has been corrected since that time. I think that there was a way that they used a statement by Eric Cantor and a statement by Paul Ryan. Kind of the two of those statements together might have been able to interpret that to imply that there wasn't a commitment on these entitlements. But I will tell you that we must stand our ground. We put the votes up. We're taking the beating from the demagoguery of Democrats. And so there's no reason for us to do anything except go forward. And by the way, we know that this whole thing blows up in the face of the next generation if we're not willing to face it today. That's the entire parameter of what we call the Ryan budget, which is really the House Republicans' budget.
But it looks like you're not willing to face it today. If we're kicking it beyond the 2012 elections, people are saying, wait a minute, what happened to the mandate that came from the midterm elections, where it was quite clear from the voters that they truly wanted to see some type of cuts? Let me just ask you to be honest here. Do you think it's because a lot of GOP congressmen, maybe Democrats too, started to hear from their constituency and people saying, don't touch my Medicare, I like it?
Yeah, I think that there have been many members of the House that have heard from their constituents who have concern, and we've seen this come up in the news with some pretty intense town hall meetings. But it would not be something that would show up in the voice of Paul Ryan. He's faced more of them than anyone else. He's very, very strong. I can tell you when he stands up and relays what he's gone through to all of us, he's got great confidence that we can win this debate with the American people. But I think you've got some language disparities here that needed to be brought back around, and to some degree they are. But let me lay a couple parameters out before we even get to the debt ceiling vote, and that's this. The troops need to be paid on time, and they need to know they're going to be paid on time. That's a bill that can pass the House and could pass the Senate tomorrow. Well, sooner we're back in session next week. And the McClintock bill that has a companion in the Senate that is the Full Faith and Credit Act that determines the sequence that we pay our debts so that in the event that there is we reach the debt ceiling, or if we hit a shutdown in a CR circumstance, needs to be passed also. Both of those bills need to get to the president's desk and become law. At that point, there's predictability in what happens if we face a debt ceiling, which Tim Geithner says now could actually be August instead of sometime later in this month. So that changes the parameters. And I would put on the debt ceiling as a requirement that we would cut off all funding to Obamacare and not chase good money after bad as a piece of this.
Let me push you on that. Let me push you on that. If you don't get what you want with regard to your requirements about the budget for the debt ceiling, are you willing to go the distance? Would you, in fact, refuse to raise the debt limit if you don't get what you want from the Democrats?
You know, yes, I would be willing to refuse to raise the debt limit, but I want to make sure that everybody knows what order we are going to pay in, because the money will come in. It keeps coming in. And so we will have resources to work with, and we can pay those priorities. I would stand and hold my ground, and I would look at the Democrats and tell them, we're not going to blink. And if any of my colleagues are worried about this, I just say that wait until I blink, and we'll be okay. But we need to pay the troops first, we need to pay the interest next, and right on down the line with the McClintock bill. And the Ryan budget is the starting point. That's that coupled with no funding to Obamacare. Let's see what happens. I think the American people will side with us. They clearly are there.
Okay.
They're there on both of those issues. They know we must do something, and in many cases, they're ahead of Congress on these issues.
Congressman Steve King, we thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot.